everyone. My name is Marsha Terry. Welcome to the Trials of Life podcast. I'm so excited you're here today. If you've been on this journey with me, you know that every week we dive into a different topic as we kind of unravel and explore the trials of life one episode at a time. And today's episode is no different. The episode is called Explore, Discovering the Best Version of You. And why are we even talking about explore? So if you've been following along on watching or listening, wherever you download your podcast, you know that I've been talking about self-care. And CARE is an acronym. If you don't know what the C, the A, and the R stand for, you're going to have to go back in time and listen and get caught up. So today is Explore. And I felt like it was really important for me to bring in a guest to really dive into discovering the best version of you. But before we go there, make sure if you are new to the podcast that you are following already, that you're liking, that you're leaving a comment, that you're sharing the content with somebody else so that we can grow our community. So let me introduce you to our guest today. I'm so excited to have him. As I mentioned last week, we're going to have a guest today. For me, he's Onuwa. I know that might be a little complicated to say, but it's really not that hard. Onuwa for me and Babe. He is the father of my two children. We have been married for 21 years. He is professionally a doctor of physical therapy. We work together every day. He is also more than that, though. He's an entrepreneur. He's a motivator. He inspires people. He is a member of the fraternity Kappa Alpha Psi. So to all y'all out there that are part of that fraternity, y'all know what I'm talking about. And I'm just really excited to have him here as we explore this episode together because we've been on this journey together for a while. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. My first time. I'm a little shy.
He's not shy. So as I mentioned, we're talking about explore. And I felt like I've been on this journey and he has been on it with me for a little while. Mm-hmm. And we have come to know some things about ourselves on this journey of self-care. And I honestly have learned so much from my husband. For real. I've learned a lot from him on his self-care process. And as I was sometimes, in all honesty, a little bit like, how come he can do that and I can't? I began to take a step back and appreciate how he takes care of himself because it's very important. So I want you to share just a little bit about what you've been thinking or been feeling about this whole self-care journey that we've been on.
Okay. What I've been thinking about this self-care journey. I think that I think it's good that you started taking up the self-care aspect of people understanding what it is how to take care of themselves. Because most of the time, people are always doing things for others and they're running a rat race and they never take time to take care of themselves. So I think it was probably something that was going to be impactful for other people to hear and be able to digest. Initially I probably might have thought some woo-woo stuff and, he's just doing all this and that. But no, I said, it seems solid, it's rooted in. And then actually when I started hearing some of the things that you were talking about and some of the courses that she's taken with the life coach, I said, man, these are things I was doing as a kid and coming up through life. And I didn't know it was a thing. There was a word for it. It was just the things that I did. So that's just it started resonating with me, what she was talking about. And I'm like, okay, go ahead and do that because that makes sense. Now there's actually some science behind what I was doing. I just didn't know what I was doing.
So that is so true. I think that on this journey, I'm going to say you've been my biggest champion for sure. I'm not sure that it started out that way, in all honesty. I think that initially, just let me say, I'm not going to say what I thought you thought. I'm going to say what I thought because perspective is everything. So initially, as I've talked about meditation and taking time out for yourself and everything. And when I was kind of making decisions about these things that I do are becoming non-negotiable, I always was thinking about, well, what's Onuwa going to say? What's he going to think about that? Now I'm going to creep out of the bed at 5:00 in the morning and I'm going to go meditate or I'm going to go work out or, whatever it is that I was doing. And I always would think about, well, how is that disruptive to his life? Right. And then I realized that like, you're really good at self-care. And I'm going to give you an example. So I remember, you come home after work. I know it's kind of funny, right? I've been paying attention. You come home after work and you would literally take about 20 minutes after work just to sit down and decompress. You would, and for you, that was watching the news. Now, that might not be the thing for everybody, but you would take that time to decompress. And as I was maybe feeling like, now, how come he can come home? We've done been working all day together. And how come he gets to come home and sit down and take time out? I realized that that was a part of his self-care. He needed to do that. Like, you needed to do that in order to deal with all the things that might have been going on in our household with our kids.
You're right. I didn't realize that. Okay, you're very observant.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so I kind of like have to take time, because if you're out in the world and you're dealing with a lot of things, like me dealing with a practice, several businesses that I've done, it's a lot of people, and dealing with the daily goings on. Sometimes you just have to come rest your brain a little bit. And watching the news, just seeing, and I just flip between the different news channels and stuff, nothing in particular, but that was my time to just kind of decompress. And I didn't know it was self-caring, but it was my time to decompress and just get my mind right. And then now I'm ready to go on to the next thing that I got to do.
Yeah, I used to be jealous about it because I'm like, well, how come he can do that and I can't? But I found a way to incorporate it into my life where I also was taking care of myself. Now, you mentioned something about mindset, and I want to say, of all the people that I know, and I'm not blowing smoke, I'm being honest, like, your mindset is on point.
Okay.
And you're like, you have to come on the podcast and say all this?
Yeah. I'm hearing it like y'all here.
You funny. For real, though, because we've had these conversations about affirmations and how our words impact, who we become.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize that because you shared with me, which I'd like you to share with our audience today, right, how you used affirmations and words to become the person that you are today.
Okay. The ones that I can remember, I do remember because I was like a C student in high school, and maybe C's, occasional D, right? Low SAT scores. And so my dad, when I finally got to college, I went to University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, which is HBCU. So they took me, thank God, right? My sister was a straight A student, and she graduated, I think, number 1 and number 2. So I was always, even though I was the oldest, she was always the most brilliant one. So I always had to work for everything I had. But I just figured in high school, I said, you know what? I see all these kids that were becoming valedictorians and graduating and going to college and still changing their majors and not becoming the things that they wanted to become. So I just assumed high school wasn't, that important.
Although we're not saying that you shouldn't go to high school.
We're not saying that. I'm just saying, and maybe that was my rationale because I already had the bad grades and nothing I could do about it. So you got to rationalize it out. But I said, okay, there is something that I can do about it. So once I graduated, I said, you know what? I walked on the campus of University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, and I stepped on the grass, and I said, today is the beginning of the rest of my life. I control my destiny. And I spoke it out aloud on the campus, and I told my sons that. Marsha's heard that for 20 years. And after that, I became a straight A student at the college level because I made a decision. And everything from that point on was geared towards becoming a physical therapist. It is very competitive to become a physical therapist. At that time, it was about 500 applicants for maybe 28 spots. So I knew there was no room for me to slack if that's what I wanted to be. So I did that. A lot of times in high school, I would always say, hey, I get up in the morning, look at myself and say, you're the man. You're the man. You handsome. Blow kisses at myself.
He still does that, y'all.
And say, hey, you're the man. Now, I might not have been the man of anybody, but in my head, I believed it. And so when you believe it, it controls your actions and it controls the moves that you make in life. So if you have that confidence, there's no one that can tell me anything that is going to take me down, going to make me feel bad, and it does. And it didn't help having all my buddies in college. So you go to college, you're the guys, your buddies they tease you to death over everything. So you have to learn how to be able to, hit back with some good jokes and things like that. So that joking also makes you strong. And so, I mean, a lot of times people nowadays are so sensitive. No one can joke with them, their feelings. We got all these things, political stuff going on. And I think over time it's kind of made us weak as a society. And we need to get back to learning how to get your mind right, get your mindset right, and stop believing all the things that we see out there.
So you can see why he inspires me, because this is how he talks all the time. So you said something earlier, which I think is really important, which is something that I share with my clients about making a decision. But also, you made a decision about how you're going to be in college, how you're going to show up, essentially.
Right.
And you also took action about that. So I think that, yeah, we can make a decision. We can decide I want to be a millionaire. You can decide that you want to be a writer. You can decide that you want to be an entrepreneur. But you have to take strategic action in order to achieve that success.
Mm-hmm.
And so even as I think about fast forward past college life for you, I've seen you take action. And I know that there's been some risk involved. Has that ever dissuaded you from going after the things that you want?
Well, people got to listen to the old adage, right? Nothing risk, nothing gain. Okay. So I always figured if I was young enough, I can always recover. So whatever my losses are, if my losses were money, and we got to realize time is money. So loss in time. I was young enough to recover. I could always work. I was able to get that degree as a physical therapist, so I knew I could work anywhere. So that was pretty much secured. And I just took the risk. It's just like when I moved to South Texas, I moved here alone, near the border. No family really in the state of Texas, and I'm from the Virginia area. So that was a big move for me. And coming here and trying to set up a practice, that was very difficult and very risky, but I did it and made it work and pushed through. And a lot of times what I tell people is that you have to sacrifice some things, So I'm living in an efficiency apartment. I drive my old Saab 900 car that didn't have no AC, because one of the kids was over the house the other day, one of our friends. He said, I remember that old car you had with no air conditioning, and it was junky, right?
It was.
But I couldn't afford to waste that money. So I would say while other folks were having a good time, they got their cars with AC, they're going to the movies, they're doing all the things that they want to do. That's all fine and dandy. I want to do those things too. But I had to make a decision about what I wanted to be and where I wanted to go with starting a private practice, because it's not easy. Very, very difficult. So that was one of the things I did.
So
Plenty more stories after that, but let's go on to the next thing.
So many nuggets in what you just shared, I think, because, there is lessons in even when you fail or you come off the tracks, if you will, on this self-care journey. There have been times where, even up to a few weeks ago, I fell off the tracks. Like, I wasn't meditating consistently. I wasn't doing all the things that I know to do consistently. But even in the quote unquote failure, it doesn't mean that you stay there. You learn from the lesson. You reassess and you're like, okay, what do I need to change in my life? What do I need to do differently in order to become the person to discover the best version of me that I need to do? And it's going back to the basic principles, right? So I really applaud the fact that despite, maybe losing some money, despite, being an entrepreneur and going through like different things in entrepreneurship, which has been really difficult, I know, it didn't stop you from continuing to achieve your dream. And that's why I'm saying that I've taken so many lessons from your playbook, because I recognize that one thing that I've talked about is when you put yourself first, right? And it's not a cut that he's putting himself before me. If he don't put himself first, how can he take care of our family, right? You've got to invest in yourself first before you can learn, before you can invest in others. As I said, you can't pour from an empty cup. So even as a man, some men might be like, I don't want to talk about self-care. That's not for me. That's not manly. It is very, very important that both, if you're married, and it doesn't matter if it's, men and women, whatever, however you define your relationship, that you are taking care of yourself, because that is the only way that you're going to be able to take care of your partner.
True. And look, self-care is not just, like me going and sitting in the TV, taking my time, right? You get as young men coming up, they need to self-care their money. So taking care of your money is self-care. If you're just giving your money away to people randomly, then that's money because your time and your money and your energy is very important. So that's money that you could have used to put into a business. You could have used to grow, buy some real estate. You could have used that money to put in an investment. So you want to make sure you don't waste money needlessly. And so pretty much I would say Marsha's probably gained the most out of any of the women in my life, right?
Aww.
So when I'm doing the dating thing, I didn't hardly spend a lot of money on people. So that was just my thing. But I traveled all over the world. I got to travel and do everything. But instead of me going to 3 countries, I could go to 29 countries, right?
And we still travel.
So I did that because I'm like, well, I tell that story to the boys and everything. I'm like, well, if I had a girlfriend and then took her on the trip, I'm spending double, and then I'm paying for 2 food. Then I have to pay for a nice place to stay. I just went by myself, stay in a hole in the wall. A couple times I might have seen a rat, some cockroaches running around, but hey, I got a bed. So I sleep in cheap accommodations and explore, right? But the thing was that I was able to get 29 countries under my belt by the time of age of 29. So therefore, I had more experiences to help grow me as an individual in terms of business, all the people that I would speak to that I met along the way, business, learning how to deal with different cultures. That was very important. So had I spent that money needlessly, and I say, guys, girls, y'all can do whatever you like, but I just look at the early points of those years. Essentially, that was my self-care. I wasn't spending my time with nobody else and taking my time to devote to anyone else except for myself, to grow myself. Because if you don't know yourself and grow yourself and love yourself, then how can you do that for somebody else?
That is so true. Drop the mic right there.
Boom.
Boom, drop the mic. So exactly. And he said the word explore. So we are both avid travelers. Y'all know that I'm from Canada, and I think it's kind of synonymous almost with being Canadian, that we like to explore. But in that journey of exploration, you do get to discover who you are. You get to know things about yourself as you engage with other people. But, and maybe what he's saying is unconventional for you. You might be like, well, how's he saying that? Look, we've been married for 21 years, and ain't nobody can take that from us. So obviously, some of the things that he says, some of the things that how I am works for us. It may not work for you, and that's okay. The premise is you got to explore and figure out what works for you. That is important here. Okay. So yes, he might have a message of what worked for him. I might have a message about what works for me, but I want to impress upon you this whole journey of self-care is about exploration. At the end, once you've figured out who you are, and he talked about loving himself. If you listened to a previous episode, you know that I talked about adore. And I tell you, this man right here beside me, he loves him some him. Okay? And I do not take that from him at all. And there is a process that I share with my clients about looking in the mirror and loving on who you are. And for some people, it's uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. But again, how can you take care of something that you don't love? So if you look in the mirror and you're saying things, or you're talking to yourself in your head and you're not being very kind, are you going to take care of that person? You're not going to take care of that person. So I've watched him, as he says, he does look in the mirror, a little, maybe more than me, and he loves on who he is. And to me, it affects who he has become, but he was doing this way before he met me. So if you're a young person and you're listening to this, if you start to adopt these principles early in your life, imagine how you get to change the trajectory of your life.
Exactly. And one thing that you said before was this thing about people is a thing, looking in the mirrors, right? And I said, what? I mean, it's a whole group, a whole movement, right? But I was like, man, I've been doing that since I was in high school. Didn't know what it was, but it was just basically a confidence builder. So, and I think more people have to be confident in themselves, Some people used to tell me in high school, I mean, here I'm walking around with C's and B's and D's, but you would have thought I was a straight A student the way I talked and I was going to be this big thing. But the thing is, I'm always telling everybody that's what I was going to do. So that's what happened. Right. So that was from high school, middle school, me always. And I met someone who was one of my teachers back then and students and stuff. They say, man, you always used to talk about what you're going to do, who you're going to be, this little thing, just talking all this stuff, what you're going to be in life. And so I think basically I was hearing it every time you speak in it, you're hearing it with your ears. And so when you hear it with your ears, it registers in your brain as true. So the same way,
whether you speak good or bad. So the same way people talk down negative thoughts. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't achieve. Well, your brain's hearing that because you speak it auditory. You hear it in the auditory system here in the ear, and then it's telling your brain. So your brain's like, okay, well, maybe we can't. Right. So that works both ways, and people need to understand that you can speak things into the world for good and progression, but you also can speak things in the world that can cause you to spiral downward. And then you're always wondering why you never get ahead. But if you're always speaking about not getting ahead, you will not get ahead. Exactly. So thank you for sharing that. So one of the things that I know that we've started to do is meditate. And so, we've gone through, look, we've been married, I'm going to say it, 21 years. And it has not been like roses and butterflies. We've had some challenges just like any other relationship would, right? I think one of the things that has salvaged us, aside from our faith in God, is that in the morning I meditate. Well, initially when I started meditating, I know he was like, what's she doing? Why is she over there with quiet headsets in her ear? What's she listening to? Why is she doing that? Whatever. But what I found is this. The more that I was practicing meditation, it kind of started to rub off on my husband. Mm. And next thing I know, we use an app for our meditation. Next thing I know, who do I see slipping out of the bed in the morning with his headsets in his ear and also meditating? I want you to share with our audience how you feel like meditation has impacted your life.
Okay, so I thought that was woo-woo initially. I'm like, who's going to be meditating? That stuff is, Dalai Lama, all of this, So I was like, well, if Marsha, and then I asked her about it and she spoke to me about it. I said, oh, this is this. And they have different things that they're talking about in the different meditations on the app. So you could just pretty much find the things that you want to do. So I looked up things that talk about being grateful, right? So after you listen to those and then you tend to be grateful about what it is that you're doing. And makes you feel better, because even when we're doing all these things and we might be acquiring things and doing different business stuff, and we forget about the small things that we need to be grateful about. So it really helps me to keep me in perspective, right? So it's like, grateful for the air that you're breathing, grateful for waking up every day. And I always try to stick with that. When I talk to patients, they always say, Dr. Terry, how you doing today? I say, I'm great because I woke up, right? So that's one of the simplest forms of gratefulness that we can do. God gave me another day to take a breath, see my wife, see my family, my kids, go see all the people I work with, go see the patients every day. I have fun doing that every day. So I got another day to enjoy those things. So we need to be grateful for the bare minimum stuff. So even when people are thinking their life's tough and difficult, well, you woke up to even say that it was tough and difficult. So we don't even think about that. So many people today did not wake up in the world, and they had plans for this week coming up, things that they were going to do. That's it. It's a wrap. So the time that we have here, which isn't very long, if you live to be 100 years old, it's still short. Okay. In the scheme of the world and how long the world's been here. So I tell everyone that meditation helped me just to be aware of those things. And then you feel a little bit better. You're able to take on your day. So you got grateful meditations. You have meditations that can help you with just a well-being in your body, being more aware in your body, what's going on. You have different meditations for progression, if you want to progress more in your life. And so it's a lot of the things that I used to say to myself when I was a kid and coming up all the time. But there's actually meditations of people saying those things. I'm sure I could probably make one too. So
sure you
that'll
could.
be the next thing going to come up. Dr. Terry meditation on how to be a big dog. Call it big dog and meditation.
So he's so crazy. So I'm really glad that, he's had that experience, because I know that I also thought it was a little bit weird, funny, peculiar, whatever, to meditate, because I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand what meditation was, and neither did I understand the impact that it would have on my life. Again, it's not for everybody. Maybe you're not the person to sit silent. There's guided meditations that we do. And what's interesting is that now we are doing these things together as a couple. So you can only imagine, the unity that we have in our relationship, because why? We now are investing in ourselves at the beginning of the day together, which I think is a beautiful thing to do. One of the other things that we started doing together, more so at his push than mine, was we exercise. So initially, I'm like going off to do my own thing with my trainer. He was going to the gym, doing his own thing. And then he decided that we should start walking together in the morning. And so it is just, to me, it's a really great and peaceful way to start your day. And even when, we might not feel like talking to each other in the morning, we still get up, we walk. We might not talk to each other on the walk, because that's happened a few times. But just getting outside in nature, breathing the fresh air, and as you really are reflecting on whatever that challenge might be or whatever you're going through, you really begin to say to yourself, is it really that serious? Because as he said, there are so many people, like even he and I know people that are in our age group that did not wake up. They left their families suddenly. And so to be able to be in this space of gratitude every single day, it changes your perspective and it changes how you interact with people. I want to say that if you've not gone to my website, marshaterry.com, please go there. I have a worksheet called Discovering the Power of Self-Care, where you can download the worksheet and kind of fill it in to understand what self-care looks like for you. Yeah. So the last thing that we're going to talk about as we kind of wrap up this episode today is how you have also embraced listening to like Audible and books online and that kind of thing. So share with me.
Yes. So so I'm watching Marsha. So that's the thing. Even though, and the one thing I always tell folks is, don't think you know everything. So I tell my employees that, my friends, I say, the moment you start thinking that you know everything, that's when you're going to lose the game. All right. So I might say, okay, I've done all these things, had companies and clinics and business deals and all this stuff that I've done in my life. But I'm still learning things from Marsha. So she's like, she's the Dalai Lama. She's like, well, hey, even sometimes I could be like, by the time I finish, I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You done Dalai Lama around that. Like, woo. I'm like, okay, that's a skill. So with that skill, because I know who I am, with that skill, you need to help other people.
Oh, thank you, babe.
So you need definitely help other people. But I think that doing the
Audible.
The Audible. Okay, yeah. She knows how I get. I'll lose my train. But doing the Audible helped me out, because usually I'm only reading stuff that pertains to work. So, medical terminology stuff that I have to do. And then I'm like, reading for fun. Can't do it. But Audible, you can just listen. So you can listen to the book. So you can be doing other things, listen to the book and get that information and knowledge in. And that's going to kind of help you when you're thinking, oh, I don't have time to sit down and actually read a book. You'll listen to the book. And if someone talking to you about the story in a way that they're being graphic, and so you can kind of put yourself there when they're talking and what's going on in that book. So I think that has helped a lot. And as I'll hear other people talk about, oh, you need to read that book, I'll just go to the little Audible and click, boom, purchase that book, and I put it in my library. So at least now it's there. And so when I get time, if we go on a plane or go on a trip, I can just listen to the Audible. And that's going to help you out a lot. So you can educate yourself that way as well.
So this just ties everything in on this journey of exploration, which really kind of encapsulates self-care, right? If you are, number one, willing to explore the different things that are out there, that is how you become the best version of yourself. You don't get to become the best version of yourself by doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You become the best version of yourself when you become open to the process, as we say. You become open to understanding perspective, open to conversation, open to exploring. Like, what does it look like for you, your self-care journey? But you can't start exploring until you really know who you are. Mm-hmm. And that is the first part of self-care, understanding who you are, learning how to love that person, learning how to restore your being, health, wealth, physically, all those kind of things. And then you're able to explore who this new person emerges. And so even though we've known each other for several years, both of us have changed tremendously over the years, but all because why? We have discovered the best version of ourselves. And together, I feel like we're unstoppable.
Yeah. And it's just being able to be more, how can I say, tolerant of people. You know what I mean? Willing to listen and understand another person's perspective. So, and that's one of the things I think just with relationships, also politics, also people in the new world of social media. Everyone wants to talk. Nobody wants to listen. Nobody wants to understand the other person's side. And that's where the problem comes. So the problem at the end of the day is communicating. That's the key. So communicate. So if it's something she's talking or she don't understand, and I'm like, okay, let me explain it. Or I don't understand it, she'll explain it out. I'm like, okay, but I'm willing to hear something different than what I normally think. Because again, I don't know everything. So when you understand you don't know everything, you can always progress. And if there's a bum on the street, believe me, I could get that bum some food. And then I'm going to sit there and talk to him and say, hey, why are you on the street? Why are you doing this? But he may have a compelling story of how he got there, right? And I can learn a lot of information from him. And so we're never too high to learn from anyone. And I think that's what is one of the main things that'll keep me progressing, it'll keep Marsha progressing. And I would say that anyone, if you are trying to figure out what you need to do, you're trying to understand self-care, she's the one to talk to. I get her for free, every day I'm good because I don't have to pay.
I never told him to say that. Just saying.
So I get her for free, right? So if I got to pick her brain about something or I'm having something, she'll talk and then helps me through it, right? So that's a very valuable asset. But you guys can get it too, and she'll help y'all out. But trust me, I would have not said that 5-6 years ago, okay? But over time, it's come along and I've been impressed. And also looking at the podcast, what's going on here with this podcast, I'm impressed. So when I'm impressed, that's pretty huge for me because not much that can impress me.
Except you're good for what? So I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I know we've been a little bit longer than normal, but I really wanted to dive into this conversation with my ace,
Ace Boom Coon.
Yes.
There you go.
We speak differently because I'm from Canada and he's American. And so it's just, the things that we say.
Yeah, she's always correcting me on stuff that I have to say.
It's okay.
Words.
We learn from each other. So again, thank you for joining us. I would really invite you to leave a comment wherever you download your podcast from. Make sure you like and subscribe and keep following the episodes because you never know what's going to come next. I believe in the next season that we are going to have more guests talk about as we really dive into the trials of life and how they have been able to overcome certain things in their life. And you never know, I might bring Dr. Terry back so we can have a different kind of conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps about relationships or about money or about whatever it is because he likes to talk about a lot of different things. So I appreciate y'all for being here. Make sure you go to marshaterry.com. Download that worksheet, and thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Take care.
All right. See you later. Bye.